Hi, welcome to my journey. Like I said, I probably wished I could have really gotten over in real estate. But I mean, it seems like whatever I did, there was always blockages. There was blockages in real estate. There was blockages in insurance, property and casualty. There was life insurance. There was all these blockages. Even in bookkeeping, there was blockages. There was blockages in supervision. I didn't understand, what the hell all of these blockages was for and why things had to be so unfair, right? Because that's how I seen it. Blockages to me is life being unfair. And it's not really life being unfair. It's people in other folks' life being unfair and thinking that it's okay. All right? But it's not. It's not okay. So, getting back to what I was talking about, right? Aristocrats. There was a reason why certain families and certain individuals in families were royalty, right? There was royalty because they had the mitochondria that communicated with the mitochondria of other people. All right? Now, typically, which men don't want us to even talk about, but typically that was, women, right? Because women pass on the mitochondria and very few men, can even receive the mitochondria of women, this royal mitochondria, all right, the royal mitochondria, right? The royal mitochondria is a receiver and transmitter, right? The non-royal mitochondria may be one or the other, okay? I really like this flavored lip gloss. It's tasty. So yeah, and that's where they got the symbolism of playing cards, right? When you're playing cards. Now, if you were like me, it's like, okay, we understand the order and the hierarchy, kinda, of the cards until we got to the red and the black joker. That's where we became like confused, like, what the hell? Come on, man. Come on out there. You in a rush. Come on. Just come on. I'm nice like that. Come on out. So, look at all the Christmas trees. Okay, so local businesses have decorated their own Christmas tree in the square. That's so nice. Isn't it nice? I bet you it looks really nice when it gets dark. I bet you it looks really nice. Okay, so even though everybody gets affected by royalty, right? Even though everybody gets affected by royalty, you know, there are some people who can't interpret what just hit them. All right? Some of them refuse to interpret what just hit them. But they were hit nonetheless with the frequency. Okay? So, now that more people are waking up and they're coming to terms with what it means to have spiritual power. You know, spiritual power has nothing really to do with the fact that you can lift weights. Although sometimes having spiritual power can help you lift weights. Can help you lift weights, right? In other words, lifting weights is not going to give you spiritual power, right? However, if you have spiritual power, your spiritual power can help you lift weights. I hope that makes sense. Behind me that's trying to push me. It's a speed limit. It's actually. I don't care. There's 3 other lanes, buddy. So here's another water. It's one of the reasons why I love this area so much, because you know, you have these bridge crossings that make you feel like you're in Seattle, surrounded by, you're on a peninsula of water, but you're not here. It's just my imagination. It's just my imagination running away. blackouts and not being able to see the sun and having all the congestion and allergies and shoot, wondering if I was inhaling metals and stuff. It was just awful. And the sad part about it is like, if I'm inhaling metals, then you best believe we're also drinking metals, right? Because it's getting into our water, it's getting into our agriculture, it's getting into everything. It's in the air. But when you got people who are willing to do anything for money, right? They're even willing to kill. All right, they're willing to kill people for money, right? They may not be your typical known assassins, right? You know how we know assassins, right? These assassins, they get paid, to take somebody out, because family member or co-worker was like, get him out the way, get him out the way. Ooh, the gasoline is cheap out here. $2.13 at Walmart. And then you get that $5.05 off. Dang, that's almost $2.07 a gallon. But I think you get like 5 cents more off if you're like a member of Walmart. You might get 10 cents off if you're a Walmart credit card holder. Dang, that would be $2 a gallon. I know these people can't stand me. I'm out here cruising. I am. Oh my gosh. Look at the water. Woo. Look at the water. Isn't it beautiful? And look, got the American flag flying over there. Look at that. It's so beautiful. I can't help it. And see, sometimes when you live here, you can take this stuff for granted. You can. It's just like everyday, hustle and bustle. Although I was trying my best to come out in between rush hour, because it is 3:23 right now. But yeah, so it looks like they're gonna open up another bridge over here. Yeah, they are. They're gonna open up another bridge, making this bridge 4 lanes. Oh, it is 4 lanes. Excuse me, there's 2 bridges anyway. One bridge going that way and another bridge going the other way. So, they must have did a whole lot of development over here. For sure, because that's definitely a new bridge. Bridge. I don't come down this way that often. He's out there fishing on his boat. probably would have been a great day to go fishing if I had thought about it. Like, go fishing, Sheree. Go fishing. But maybe with the coming of the new year, be like a new start, and then a new, weight loss mission. Right? Just as long as you never give up, right? Never give up. But yeah, it was like my rebelliousness that came out of me because of the food stamps shortage and the food shortages, because everything was so high. It was like, okay, how can you how can you eat, get full, be happy, for the least amount of money? And of course, I had my breaking point. Yeah, I had my breaking point, and my breaking point was like, nah, we want some expensive beef. Expensive prawns. Yeah. Wonder what they dig in here. Oh no. They sure are digging deep. Whatever it is. It's real deep. It's like 4 stories into the earth. Down. Dual motors. I wonder how big her battery is. Wonder how big their battery is. That's what I'd be wondering now when I see these electrical cars, like that Lincoln right there. How big is their battery? What's the average, distance that they can go on a charge? Right? And then how easy is it for them to get a charge at home and away from home? Because sometimes at home it could take you like 6-8 hours to get a charge. And then, you can go to these fast chargers, and even though, you might, take a couple of hours, fast charging, they don't charge you to maximum. They don't. And I think that's, just because they don't want you blowing up. I don't know. I just suspect it's because they don't want you to blow up. But they're not going to let you fill her up. So that was one of the things that, I had heard about from what was his name? Eggleston. Yeah, his name was Eggleston. And he was trying to teach these people these concepts that if they only learned them, then they would be able to see them. But a lot of them heard, but they didn't listen. A lot of them listened, but I didn't know how to apply the knowledge in real life. It was like a Harry Potter Star Wars movie script that they could believe or not believe. That's kind of how it seemed. That's how his audience was. And he was really, really mad, because he was like, I'm teaching you the truth, and you guys, you don't even have the appreciation to pay me for my knowledge, and yet you guys are out here paying these people to lie to you. And he was right. He was absolutely right. And I mean, the thing about it is, I remember what he said just so that I could verify as to whether or not what he was saying was true or not. And then he kind of disappeared. He just disappeared. I mean, he got up to like about, I think it was like 10,000 subscribers. And he got so mad that he decided that, he was just going to start a new channel. I wasn't, on his popular channel. I was watching him, talk to, I was the second wave, right? When he was talking about, how he was mad that these, he just dropped at, those 10,000 subscribers and decided he was going to start anew, and I guess, I'm not even sure, whatever he was looking for, he was not getting, he was not getting. And that's understandable, because if we're not utilizing, the monarchy system, then we're going to be utilizing a tribal system. And I'm not even sure if that's better. I don't think it will be, because there would be too much need to tolerate on other people's belief systems all the time, right? which was kind of what America wanted to do. Is America, was saying, all right, look, we have to be, on one accord, right? But we'll remain, republics. And of course, it's the smaller cities, that, are slow, to get the memo. They're slow to get the memo. Damn, 5 pieces of chicken for $9? Yeah, there's that, extra heat in the car situation. And here's the funny thing, right? The funny thing was, in my mind, I had seen this whole area as like a retirement area, right? But it's like just the opposite happened. The way that they've been treating the senior citizens, right? Just the opposite happened, where, they decided that, shoot, what was that, was it Logan's Run? I think it was Logan's Run, where once you reach a certain age and your crystal turned red or started blinking and flashing, means you had to go to the Ascension Center. Yeah, you had to go to the Ascension Center and go to the next life. And this was in this particular city, right? But nobody was allowed to leave the city. They were told that outside of the city was poisonous, so they had to stay within the city. But this couple, their lights started blinking, right? Which means that, they had to get their affairs in order and eventually go to the Ascension Center. And, but they were in love, right? And they didn't want to go to the Ascension Center. Actually, only one of them, light went off, right? And I think it was a girl. Yeah, I think it was the girl's light that started flashing. And the guy was like, no, you cannot leave me, and he was like, I'll go with you, and they were like, you can't go with her, and anyway, so he decided what he was going to do was, he was going to run away with her. And he did. He ran away with her outside of the city limits, And that's where they came across this old guy that they never seen an old guy before, because everybody that was ascended before they even got old, right? I guess older than, I guess, 30 or 40 was actually a burden on their society. So they got rid of them before they even got old within the city. Okay? So I believe it was Logan's Run. And the reason why they called it Logan's Run is because, you know, they were running away from having to turn themselves into the Ascension Center. He wasn't, I don't remember him, you know, having his light go off. It could have later on, but initially it was the woman. Initially it was the woman whose crystal was flashing. She was going to have to go to the Ascension Center, and they was like, nah, you know, let's run away, you know, and they ran away. And that's where they seen that, oh my gosh, you know, if this man is out here living as old as he is, you know, they realize that shit, they're living a lie. Right? They're living a lie. That they didn't have to ascend at 30. So what they did, see, that's some dudes thinking that, oh, you're going too slow to be on our highway. Get off our roads. And they probably don't even pay as much taxes as I pay, right? Just being a property owner alone, I pay more taxes probably than he does. So right. Now there's how many lanes? 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 lanes, right? And I'm only in one of them. And they may not like the fact that I'm going slow. Right? But I'm not going that slow. It's not like I'm riding down the road going 35 miles an hour. I'm going 60. Right? And the speed limit is 65. So now maybe they know that I'm driving, you know, an electrical vehicle, and therefore, you know, I'm going to be driving underneath the speed limit, you know, not to burn my battery, and that pisses them the fuck off. Or maybe they don't know that I'm driving a vehicle and I might even be having car problems. They don't know if my battery is, you know, going on 0 and they're trying to push me to go faster, and I can, you know, my car could stall out on the highway. They don't know none of that, and they don't care. And they don't care. All they care about is get out the way. Move. And I'm like, there's 3 other lanes that you could have possibly went into. So now I got to go off on this other side road, and it's a beautiful side road, and it's 45 miles. The speed limit is 45. Look, isn't it beautiful? It's so beautiful. And it's higher up. You can see both sides of the lake. Yeah. Even though the speed limit is 45, I'm going 50, 53, 52. You know, there's 2 lanes now. There was 3. You know, why cars feel like they got to come all the way up on your tail and then say, well, damn, I think I'm going to have to change to another lane. And it just makes me wonder, you know, are these the same parents of the kids that go riding down these highways at 90 and 100 miles an hour? You know, I mean, where are they getting this from? You know, this is behavior that should stay within the arcades, right? You keep that stuff in the arcades where you're doing video games. You don't bring that out here in real life. I mean, you can't even see these businesses. They want you to go so fast. But now that I'm over here, I do want to see this RV location. Yeah. It's called Lakeshore RV Resort. This is it. You can get propane. Looks like you can get some carports. You can get electrical outlets. It looks like you can also do the water, and it's enclosed, right? You have to have a pass to get in. Yeah. You have to have a pass to get in the gates. It's fenced off. It probably costs a lot of money too for that kind of security. And needless to say, you know, I've contemplated, you know, several times on becoming like a nomad homesteader, right? Even though I know how dangerous it could be. Because when you're out in the boonies, you know, that's where a lot of lawlessness happens. thought that, well, the main people out there would be, senior citizens out there, because the communities that, they thought was going to be retirement communities, ended up not being retirement communities, or being took over as prime real estate under the guise of, new and affordable housing, right? However, it's outpriced, the amount of income that was projected to live off of, 20 years ago. Right? So this is one of the things that, we're not coming to terms with when we're talking about, the seniors should have this and the seniors should have that, right? Well, the seniors, a lot of them did not. A lot of them did not plan properly. A lot of them could not plan properly. A lot of them were raised in dysfunctional families. A lot of them, were dysfunctional in their behavior, True. Not all, and not even most. Most of them went along with what they were told to do, which is, get a job, have a savings, have a 401k or a pension plan, and just try to keep being viable as much as possible. And a lot of people thought that they was going to actually succeed at that until certain crises happen, right? The property crises of what? 2008, right? When people got hit with fast rising interest rates and they were all on these variable interest rate homes, with balloon amounts, huge, right? $400,000 and $500,000 loans, but the interest rate was like 1% and 2% at the time. So they got hit, right? And that was in 2008. They cried, they moaned, they got vengeful. Yes, they did. Right? And here's the thing. They blame the government. And it's like, how are you blaming the government? You weren't financed in an FHA loan. You weren't financed through a VA loan. But they blame the government. And they've been blaming the government since. Right? Now, we all know what happened in 2001, right? 2001, 11/11, right? First time America ever been attacked in her borders. But as shocking as that was, somehow it's just so surreal that America will be so lucky that the two twin towers that could actually hold could actually hold 20,000 people barely contain 3,000 people on that day. Amazing, right? amazing that only about 3,000 people did not get the memo that they was not supposed to show up for work on that day. And the Twin Towers was probably the most expensive commercial buildings in America. And ever since the Twin Towers went down, so did every last single commercial building. Just about. Right? Most people, they're like, we're not going to buy commercial buildings, we're not going to really do no leasing, right? And then when 2020 hit, right, proving that you don't have to have a business location in order to do business, that is just something that they set up, on purpose, with purpose. That was one of the things that I didn't understand, right? I wanted to do insurance, out of my home. And there was a lot of companies, well, most companies were like, nah, you had to have an actual storefront, right? And then, I went and got a storefront, and the storefront that I was able to get and afford was in downtown Long Beach. But at that time, Long Beach, had did an expansion to the road. So there was no parking, there was no through traffic coming through, doing business, with this required storefront, right? And I'm like, what the fuck is this, right? And then there was the errors in admissions insurance, right? Where, if a policy gets sold under fraudulent situations, there's supposed to be errors in admissions insurance, which will cover the losses that had occurred or was incurred as a result of them not doing the business like they should, right? Such as insuring a vehicle that was already damaged, and then they're later putting the claim out there, stuff like that, pretending like somebody had, insurance before, preconditions. And then later on, they find out that, preconditions was prior to them actually getting the policy. Stuff like that, That's what the errors in admissions insurance was for. Which is why, I don't understand how people could, not want, fraudulent claims to be caught. That's what the errors in admissions is for, is to make sure that at some point they get caught. And we heard that throughout the spiritual community, where there was people who were buying, selling life insurance policies you know, using ID fraud. Right. Which was one of the reasons why Trump decided to consolidate the DMVs in the public safety buildings so that, you know, they won't get away with what they got away with. You know? And yet, you know, they're still moaning and groaning. They're moaning and groaning that they got caught. Right? Instead of, you know, keeping it pushing and moving along, that, you know, they're not being prosecuted. It's just their methods have been caught. And what they did was they decided to stop the activity from even occurring rather than keep going on this hamster wheel of catch and release. Right. Now the catch and release is a whole nother subject, right? And right now, you know, a lot of these judges, you know, are facing, you know, severe consequences for having this catch and release mentality that has caused this problem to keep reoccurring. Right. Like why would you let somebody come into your courtroom, you know, having done ID fraud and not stop the businesses that was committing the false IDs? Something like that. Okay, the weather forecast did not lie. It is currently 78 degrees outside. Woo! And I made it back home. So, yeah.